session 4 of the second day, basically. Bottom-up approaches and informal urban activities. How theory can inform practice, as well as how practice can inform theory. And I just wanted to say a couple things about, like, just give an overview, at least for those of you who are new to Hong Kong, that Hong Kong has, I would say, from 1997, after the handover, that's when actually the engagement started, really, where you have the people really involved, because I think at that time they realized that Hong Kong is their place. It's not a borrowed place and borrowed time. And so that's really started off. And I think, like, even maybe Francesco remembers when the Star Ferry was demolished, is when it kicked off a big thing among Hong Kong people. And I remember being one of the persons with other people walking around that area, trying to tell government, they shouldn't be doing stuff like this. So I think that's when really public engagement really started off, because I remember before that, it was more like a consultation, like, the government would do projects and they're just there to inform, and there was not too much of back and forth in those conversations either. So I think Hong Kong has grown a lot from that time till now. It's almost become like a place that is, there's so many advocates who actually talk about public engagement being important, it's instrumental, and it's recognized. And bottom-up approaches, like how Henrik mentioned yesterday, there's a lot of NGOs and other organizations that are actually doing many things. So it'll be interesting to hear what else is happening in other places and on this very important topic. And I would like to, we have 4 speakers today, and I'll introduce each one before their session starts. So first would be Filipe Afonso, and he studied mathematics and architecture in Porto and Barcelona. In 2006, he co-founded Arquitectos Anonymous, an architecture studio that produces its work as a kind of individual supplanting, reacting in the contemporary Portuguese context of the exaggerated weight of authorship, individuality. Filipe has taken part in many exhibitions, lectures, and workshops worldwide, and has been published widely. Recently, he has been a professor and researcher at Guangzhou University School of Architecture and at the University of St. Joseph. He has been awarded several international prizes, like the IF Design Award and the Green Good Design Award. Without further ado, I would like Filipe to start his presentation. Thank you, Filipe, for being here.
Thank you, Sujata, for the introduction, and Francesco for organizing this event. I had the chance to see some of the sessions before, and they are really nice topics, some of them new and surprising to me. So I think it's really engaging scenario we have here. So it's a pleasure to be here, of course. And what I have to tell you today is not exactly an organized lecture about public space or policies or strategies on the public space or placemaking. I'm going to introduce a generation of architects that in Portugal struggle with the economic crisis, still undergoing, and they find creative strategies, creative ways of producing their work, no matter the chances to build things. They have the will to do design, and this has a certain impact with the public space. Just let me put here my clock to control the time, or
yeah, each speaker has about 15 minutes.
Okay, so I'm gonna start here. Great. Let
Thank
me
you.
share my screen then. Okay, I hope everybody's seeing the screen right now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I changed a little bit the title of the presentation. So I call it Crisis Breeds Creativity. You know, and this is about a dream of the younger generations of architects in Portugal. They had a dream to build things, and suddenly, because of many conditions, especially the economic crisis in 2008, they start doing things in a smaller scale, and those things have an impact, especially in the public spaces where they are visible. So usually they choose to do their interventions and expose their creativity in the open space, in the public space, in the space of conflict. This is quite interesting to observe to me. And these young architects, I was part of, let's say, this generation of younger teams in Portugal, and I know them personally. So all these examples I'm going to show, they are somehow my former colleagues in the university, or they were my friends there in Portugal. And after the crisis, the scenario changed a lot. But I put this slide says after the crisis, but in fact, I want to talk a little bit before crisis. No, so the economic crisis starts in 2008 around, and has a huge impact in the south of Europe, especially in Portugal. This changed totally the paradigm of we had so far of doing buildings, or architect was trained to build buildings, and this changed a lot. So teams, they need to adapt if they want to do something. So before the crisis, I'm going to show two projects of public space. One is from Isabel Barba. She was my colleague in the university in Lisbon, and she did this project in Madrid, the square of De La Luna. So this is underground parking and a square, very well designed pavement, thinking about patterns and some very sensitive elements that pop out in the big square that bring people and allow to go underneath, with an interesting idea about water, how to integrate water into this pavement, and through the patterns create a quite interesting environment. So this was a moment where people was able to do competitions, and the young teams, they were able to win competitions in Portugal, abroad, international competitions, and they had chance at least that way to reach the commissions, to have something visible they could build. This is my own contribution to this lecture. No, this is a competition I won in 2003, and we built this is a cultural center and a public space in the main square, in the central square of a small city nearby the coastline in Portugal. So this is the main square. In one side we have this cultural center, and in the other side we have the town hall. And basically we wanted to create this, in terms of strategy for the public space, this big carpet in dark stone, the basalt, because this city is of course is very sunny, it's an Atlantic city, but also the limestone is a very characteristic stone on this place, and it's quite hard, especially during summer, to walk on the streets with this white stone. So we wanted to create this dark carpet. This is the environment you feel there in these small scale cities. So this was the what we could do before this so-called crisis arrived in Europe. After these moments, the teams need to adapt, so they start having a different kind of consciousness. And this made them think about more in a social way or in a political way. And the projects, they start being more engaged with, for example, local communities. This is a project from ATM Machine in a small neighborhood in Lisbon, in Marvila. And this is a low-income neighborhood. Most of the people, they work in the construction sector, one of the most affected by the crisis, so they were unemployed. So the architects had an idea to start regenerating some parts of this neighborhood by creating this outdoor auditorium. So they gathered a budget, a small budget, and with the labor force of the neighbors, they start doing a project. So they have the will to do things even without money. And also they refurbished the access to the auditorium, this outdoors auditorium. So by painting the walls, rebuilding the staircases, so create a kind of pathway that leads to the main space, the public space that is the auditorium. So this is a kind of informal strategy. This is not set as a deep study like we saw before in some other lectures about the local community. Is the will of the architects to do things, but somehow the project is organized. There was an exhibition of the project. There was the participation of the population. They vote in the proposals they want to build first. There was these assemblies with all the neighbors. So it was quite engaging for the population, I suppose. This is another example from other team called MOVE. They also were my colleagues in Lisbon in the university. So this is an intervention to the scenario is a music festival and in Estonia. So they were invited to join this music festival and create some installation for the festival. And one of the streets leading to the festival, they decide to do something along these streets, and they start printing message. And they wanted to have a kind of double reading along the street. So when you go up the street, you can read a message, and when you go down, you can read a different message. So this is just playing with words and communicate a message through words. So there's very little architecture, but there's a lot of impact in terms of space, I think. This is a similar approach from the same team, but this time another festival, the same organization, but this time in Poland. This is one of the streets that leads to the main space of the event, of the festival. And there was this wall with these missing bricks, and they start looking at this context. There's no money to do these things. I'm talking about interventions that cost almost nothing. They build them themselves inclusive, right? So they have the idea to cap the gaps, to fill the gaps of these missing bricks. And they did it once again, trying to pass a message for the people that is on the street, for the users of the public space. And they did it in the hotel room while they were there during the festival. So they start creating soap and printing the messages. They cut messages from books, from novels, from getting out of the context, interesting passage from books. And then they make the tools they need. They creating these bricks and put the message inside, and with a very an expensive LED, they start creating these new bricks that finally add this impact along the street leading to the festival, creating some provocative message. This is a completely informal strategy. So there's nothing planned. Is really observing the site for the first time and have an idea. And it happens that when the ideas are good, are interesting, they will have an impact in the public space and in the public. And one interesting phenomena that happen is that later the people start stealing these bricks to take at home, or taking them at home. And this is also part of the process. It's really the architecture or your idea that makes an impact. People wants to take it at home. This is another project from another architect, is Marcelo. And this is also completely informal. Of course, this has the authorization of the Lisbon Town Hall. This is a project in Lisbon. And the idea of Marcelo is to bring people near the monument and near the water. He calls this project Lisbon Waterfalls. So there's this, of course, in Europe, all these monuments and these fountains that are completely useless unless you can bring people near the water to experience the water, especially in summer. So the installation was done in July or August, so it's pretty hot in Lisbon. And this walkway, all done in plywood and wood, is of course temporary and brings the people near the water, experience the monument in a different way. I'm gonna pass a little bit faster. Once again, this was not a program strategy, no, this was just a design project with this impact in the people. I'm gonna jump a little bit faster. I wanna show some more things. I mean, you may interrupt me at any time because this can go on and on during many hours. So at any moment is a good moment to stop as well, okay? I think what I'm showing becomes repetitive at a certain point. Okay. I want to jump. All right. Okay, next slide. Oh, not here again. I'm locked here. I want to go to the next slide. Oh. Okay. I think something is wrong here. Oh. Can I go to the next slide? Oops. Okay, yeah, yes, this is playing inside. All right, this is another project from, again, from Move. And this is an intervention in downtown Lisbon, in Chiado. Chiado is an expensive, fancy neighborhood nowadays, but in the 80s, there was a big fire that destroyed completely this central area of Lisbon, Chiado. So Álvaro Siza, the architect, the Pritzker architect, was invited to rebuild Chiado. And he did an amazing job. Right now, this is an expensive neighborhood. And Move, they wanted to create these shelters. So they allowed people, anyone that could occupy these tents could experience living in Chiado, no? So they created this display with many of these tents, and basically you could occupy the tent and do everything you want inside. And so some people start putting plants or doing something else. Some artists came also start doing some installations inside the tents. So this was also an informal strategy to create something on the public space, to give it a different use to the public space. And this is an intervention from also a colleague of mine in Lisbon before, is Antonio Louro. And the project is called Keychain. Is in fact a competition they won to create a display for these events. Is also a festival, mainly in Switzerland. And there is a gathering event during the festival, and they create this idea of the keychain, creating some models that could be assembled together to create the display for the gathering events, you know, for the lunch break and so on. And this is how it looks like in the real sites with during the events. And this is a really interesting phenomena. So the building, the display can go in and out the buildings that host the events of the festival. And this is the same architects playing with a sign, with signage, with this street signage they call the Yellow Arrow project. And they start making these big scale arrows and go along the city in Lisbon, doing things with the arrow, asking for the reaction of the people, for the engagement of the people in many funny, unpredictable ways. At a certain point, people start engaging, start using the space. They create these, with these models, they could create some seats, some space where you can rest, can have a little rest. Or they can go inside a 7-Eleven to make some disturbance, to see the reaction of the people. Or they can be a bit confusing in the round points. So this is really kind of informal ways to look at the space, at the public space. They are not exactly having a strategy. And this is a friend of mine is kind of architect, artist, he's André. And we decide to work with this unpredictable material that is the shirts. So this is a canopy in the public space. This is downtown Porto. And this kind of ceiling, a canopy done with shirts and water bottles and ropes. So this is the same, but inside a gallery. So it's a little bit not so engaging with the people. And this is really pretty serious stuff, serious project in terms of construction. He has there's a drawing, a detailed drawing about this. So all these materials, and at a certain point he said, okay, I'm done with the shirts. This limits me a lot, the shirts, I'm gonna do something different. So he started doing something with pants. And this is the first, in fact, he found this old building, empty building in his street where he lives, and start occupying spontaneously the building. And this is a way of, in my point of view, to make space as well, to make place. And then he did the same installation in a music festival there. And making place can be just a message, can be just signage. For example, this project from Arteria is just signage, just trying to revitalize the commerce in the old street in Lisbon by changing their signage, the outdoor signage for the shops, the restaurants, and so on. So they are architects doing, at this moment, architects are doing just something graphical, passing a message, and can be even more radical. This is a project from Caput in Lisbon, and they create these outdoors, they print them out, and it means in Portuguese, quanto te sugam os ricos, means how much the rich people suck from you. So they start printing these things on the walls, and they disguise them almost like ceramic tiles, these old ceramic tiles we have a lot in the monuments there. So they could pass this message as long as possible till the authorities take them down. And they start doing the same, hacking the ATM machine. So this is the ATM machine, and this is a zoom. So at the top is the message, it's like insert your card, and the image in the bottom is the hacking message, how much the rich suck from you. So when you put your bank card to get money, you need to read this message, And finally, this is another architects passing a message through signage, and this is a little bit like Bansky. Miguel Januário is called Chaos, his artistic name, and is very difficult to know who is this guy. And for many years, I remember to see this plus and minus on my city in Porto. It was all over the places, really hacking the city in the most unpredictable way, sometimes even underneath the posters and so on. And no one knew what was this. And at a certain point, you start passing message as well, not just the signage, the minus and plus. This is very fun to read it in Portuguese, because there's a certain, it plays with words, So this is, acreditamos em Deus means we put our hope, our credits in God. But if you put an A, acreditamos with an A, then it means we believe in God. So this kind of playing with the sentence, with the words, but also putting attention to the problems of the city. This is a modernist building, is a monument, in fact, that is abandoned in Porto for many years. And is saying, this is I'm not sure this is a Portuguese house. And here is the times are death, also the wheels, the wishes are death. I think, but I do not exist. So a reference to philosophy. Nice people or fancy people do not live here. And this is fun, maybe this is suitable for Hong Kong. Save water, that way we can play golf, okay? And this is the end. And seems there's another crisis coming because of coronavirus. So this is also another opportunity to be creative. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Filipe. That was quite an interesting, very provocative projects. I think you underlined basically how crisis breeds creativity, and also how the younger generation actually get involved in the city to push the boundaries further, so to create awareness about certain issues in the city, and get people to be more aware. And also at the same time, even when there is not enough budget or formal projects, in an informal way, trying to do projects so that people can actually enjoy in the city and express themselves. So it was really good. And I think we will try and have the second